Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. We're back on our pandemic projects, and today's project is going to be a smaller reel. It's a classic. It's the Daiwa 1000X. It's a ball bearing reel, and this one is part of a set of reels that came in. I did the 6500 bait runner from Bakesh, and now we're going to do the Daiwa. I also did the 4500 that was previewed, but I didn't do any video on that because if you have the video for the 6500, they apply. Also in my library I have a video on the 4500 bait feeder from Shimano, so go ahead and look at either one of those. Those will help you a lot here. And this one is just sluggish, and I'm guessing that for the most part this has probably got some dried grease in it. I'm seeing it dried on the case here, and I'm feeling it in the handle turn. So we'll take this apart. We'll clean it up, we'll get it lubed, and we'll get it back with the recommendation, go replace this fishing line. I don't know how old it is, but it's time for it to be replaced. So let's get started, and I get started by removing the external pieces and parts. This one has the push button in it like a Mitchell, but that button seems to be jammed, so it's not releasing the spool at all. Not a problem, leave that on there. There's not much you can do about it at this point, unless you wanted to replace an axle shaft. But take the knob off. That just kind of gets rid of the preset. Pull the spool up. Now this should come off, but it's not, and that's because this button is stuck. We'll put a little bit of WD-40 on there. We'll let it soak. The good news is it's stuck in the fixed position, which enables it to work. So if that doesn't free this button up and enable us to take this portion of the spool off, we're not going to worry about it. Right now it seems like you would only damage the reel by trying to pull that up and get that off. So we'll leave it as it is. Okay, check the back side. Sometimes these are the reels that hold a little screw in the main gear. So just check. Remove that side cap screw just to check. And this one is not. That means we have a through screw, and we do not have a through screw. We have a screw handle. Getting ahead of myself here. And before I get too far down the road, let me thank our first responders, essential personnel, law enforcement, and the like for helping us through this pandemic. And we truly do appreciate everything you do and everything you guys stand for. So thank you. Alright, the handle simply comes out by screwing it in reverse. We have 3 case screws, and this will probably show us where the problems may be with the sluggish performance. I have a series of screwdrivers on my desk here. You always want to find the right one for the groove. This one seems like it was starting to bow tie, that is flare out on both sides. So I went to a wider bladed screwdriver. I'm going to lay these in my parts tray, which you may or may not see behind you. I guess you don't see it behind you. I'll bring it into the frame in a moment here. I've been asked to stay closer in terms of the close-ups on these reels, and that sometimes blocks other things from being seen. So I do apologize if there's something else on my bench that I want to show you and it's out of frame, but folks have been telling me servicing of the reels, it's more important to have a close-up view. And since I'm kind of a one-man videography kind of unit here, then it's unfortunate, but it's kind of what you see is what you get, right? I still have a screw that's in the case here, so let me get that off. And one more. Yes, I thought I had it, but I didn't. All right. So that brings the case into view, and we have a lot of dried grease, which is what I was suspecting to see because of the performance of this. I'm going to just lay that down on the side. I'm going to remove those side plate screws and put them into my parts tray. I verified that they're all the same length. Here's my parts tray, just coming into view now. It's nothing but the bottom of a milk jug, but it holds all the pieces and parts I take off. I always recommend, as you're servicing a reel, to take the pictures along the way, particularly if you don't have a schematic for the reel or an intimate knowledge of that reel. The reason for that is as you go to reassemble, you want to make sure that you get all the parts back in the same place. I'm removing the side plate bushing. Remove the arm now. This pin should just come out, but it's like everything else in this reel, it's kind of tight. So let's see if I can't get that arm off first. There's a lot of grease and something on here that's causing everything to slide. So I'll take that arm off, take the main gear out. Oh, that's why. Okay, so there's hiding behind that arm is the, typically on these older reels, that little pin becomes what's holding the axle shaft in, but hiding underneath that cross-wind arm is a little Phillips head screw, and that's why I can't get the arm out. So let's do that right now. And you can see that the grease is dried. And also in this case, it almost looks like that's metal. I don't have a magnet, I'm not going to test it, doesn't matter. But I am going to put that little screw into my parts tray as well as the cross-wind arm. Now I can remove that main shaft. And for whatever reason, as I mentioned, this is stuck. I'm going to clean it up. And I'm going to put some WD-40 from the underside of this as well. And that may or may not enable us to get that off. Again, it can operate with it kind of stuck on. It can't operate with it stuck off, obviously, but you can see the effect of the dried grease here. And it can be acting as a glue, holding that pin from releasing. So we're just going to scrape that as best we can. And it may be that that's what's holding this in. Then I'm just going to put some WD-40 on there, kind of let that set. Any penetrating oil will do. And interestingly enough, if you push down now, you might be able to get that to move off or not. Again, not important. It seems like it's frozen on there. Reel this age, just kind of live with it. It's pushing it, but it's not releasing it. Okay, I'm just going to leave that off to the side. I will let the owner know that if they want to do a quick change on a spool, that's not going to work. We're going to get the grease out of the channel here. This is old dried grease, which is why the performance of this reel is what we were feeling in that initial diagnosis. And I imagine we'll see some more of that on the underside. Again, I'm just for dissolving purposes, that's what I'll use the WD-40 for. I don't use that as a general lubricant. All right, I'll take the main gear out now that the axle came out, and you can see that we have a lot of dried grease with that. So we're going to go ahead and do the same thing we've been doing with the other pieces. Put some penetrating oil on there, grab a cotton swab, try and clean up the excess. A lot of that seems to be stuck. So I'm going to use a little pick here to see if we can't chip that off, which is exactly what we're doing. We're chipping it off. And when that stuff gets to be like concrete, like you're seeing here with the pieces that are just coming off in big chunks, that's what's deteriorating the performance on this reel. Not that stuff, because that's not in the travel of the reel itself, but you saw where it was kind of welding itself to that side plate bearing. And other places along the reel, you saw it in the crosswind block, etc. All right, so we've chipped that off. Go around and clean it. Check the teeth. Make sure that there's no bent or broken or warped teeth. I'll get the old grease off the face here, which was bogging it down as well. Get in that little insert there. Make sure all those cavities get cleaned out. Alright, the main gear is in pretty good condition now. A little bit of that grease. People ask me why I wear this protective glove, and that's exactly why. I will just reseat that side plate bushing there. I'm going to take the top off now, the rotor. Looks like it's a 10mm nut. It is. Looks like it's also on pretty darn tight. There we go. So this is a traditional counterclockwise removal. It was stuck tight, and so I was alternating between clockwise and counterclockwise, trying to figure out what the actual issue was there. Now we have an anti-reverse override. We have a spring that's riding on that. We have a little anti-reverse gear. The gear in this one itself is clean enough. It's clean. There's no grease or anything on it. Surprisingly, could be another cause for this to be tight. Just cleaning a little bit out of that case there, the travel. So I'm not going to remove the gear. It's just a basic service. I am going to make sure that the one ball bearing that's in here gets oiled very well, so I'm going to do that from the top and from the bottom of this reel. We noted that there was a lot of seepage of the old grease here. I'm just going to do a quick cleanup here. I'm going to use a general degreaser. It's a product called Purple Power. It's available all over the place. You can get it at Walmart or auto stores or just about anywhere if you're interested. I don't endorse products. I just tell you if they work. This one works. So I want to get the back of both of these and a little bit on the side case. You gotta be careful with this Purple Power. If you find emblems or decals, I wouldn't recommend using it. It can, it's pretty powerful stuff. It can take the glue out of the out of those decals and pop them off. Speaking from experience. Okay, I'm going to put this ratchet back on. Trip the anti-reverse off to do that. Make sure the underside of the spool is clear. This has a little trip lever that comes out, so I do like to oil those. If it was the flat bar that's operated off of a different spring setup, you don't need to do that. I'll go ahead and put this back on then. A little bit more cleaning. A lot of this is just about cleaning when these reels are this age. A lot of times they just bog down because the grease is dried. We know that this goes on in a clockwise manner now. So we'll get that on and get that tightened down. Again, we'll oil the pivot points. So I have a bell arm pivot point there, and on this side want to oil the line roller area as well. And you can work it back and forth just to make sure that the oil works in. This bail was performing fine, so it's not an issue there. Alright, we'll just go for reassembly then. And then go ahead and grab some grease and get it into the slot where that crosswind block rides. I'm going to take the main gear. I'm going to put fresh grease on that, a little bit where it's going to ride in that plastic bushing. Make sure we get an adequate amount on the teeth. Doesn't have to be in every tooth, but you should get it spread throughout. And we can put that back in. I think it probably is easier to put this piece back in before I put the main gear back in. I'm not sure there's a set answer in terms of sequence to it. It kind of fell out when I was pulling the main gear out, so let's just get the dried grease out of there. Remember, the point was on the outside, like that. Now we can put the main gear back in. Oh, I want to get a little bit of grease onto the pinion gear as well, since we didn't pull that out. This has got a lot of strength for a small reel. You don't need everything going with this one. Alright, that sets that up. Now we'll take the shaft. We want to clear that shaft of any old debris. Put a light coat of grease on there. Don't put a lot. I've said this many times if you do watch my videos. It's only going to jam up here because of the tight tolerances. I will go to get that set into the crosswind block here. And once you got those mated, make sure that the hole for that set screw lines up. I use a little pick to do that. I have that little Phillips head screw that sits in there. That was our little surprise when we were taking this apart, that it was hiding back there. Get that back on. I just noticed as I flipped this over that we got some dried grease on the undercarriage here, so I'm going to go back to that purple power, just give it a quick little squirt. Grab my rag. You can see it's a pretty concentrated degreaser. It kind of works right away to take that stuff off. Just be careful with it. One of the viewers told me that product has lye in it, so if you're sensitive to lye at all, then please be careful if you're using this stuff. Also, it's another reason why I keep that glove on my hand. Alright, I'm going to just get new grease onto the face here where that crosswind arm is going to ride. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that the crosswind arm is free of the old grease. And this is probably the top issue that you have with older reels, is that they just accumulate the grease if they're in storage for a while, and they just need to be cleaned up and that old grease off. Once you get that old grease off, they usually work like a champ. Alright, I remember when I did this that that's the proper orientation of this. That's where you would go back to a picture that you may have taken along the way. If you said, geez, did it look like the number 9 or did it look like the letter G? No, it looked like the number 9 in terms of orientation. Alright, it's just a matter of getting the hole on the stud here. And lining it up with the guide on the eccentric. Next step then was our little plastic bushing for the outer case. Again, make sure that's clear. A little bit of grease for the stud side of the main gear. I got a cleaned case here. Now on this case, there is a channel here on the case, right there. That channel is going to hold the outside tip of that crosswind lever, this channel right here. So make sure as you go to reinstall that you get grease there as well. That's the little point on the piece right here is going to ride in that channel. And sometimes you may have trouble putting that case back. And the reason is that that little stud is not in that little channel there. So you just want to make sure as you work it that you get a nice mesh in a solid case. Grab the 3 of these then. And we'll just go up top. I'll show you the drag assembly. We'll make sure that's clean. My guess is it's not, just because of the way that it's the rest of the reel looked. So we'll go in and I believe it has a Teflon washer up top and a little plastic washer underneath for the drag system. So we'll just take a look and we'll make sure that it's done properly. Alright, on the way back in, the Phillips head seems to be doing its job. On the way out, we used a broader screwdriver there. One of them was kind of butterflying or bow tying, getting the elongation of the slot. It was this one actually. Since the screws are all the same length, it doesn't matter which screw goes in which position. There we go, we're done with those pretty much. Just in time, my hand's getting tired there. Folks ask about the mechanical screwdriver. I do not recommend that, particularly on the way in, because they do carry a lot of torque. Okay, let's just put this back on. I already spun it by my hand there. Let's give it the test with the handle engaged. Just having some issue getting it seated properly with that bullet on the handle there, the little cap. Okay. Well, that's a whole lot easier. So the only issue with this reel is that the fast set for the spool is stuck to the shaft, probably rusted on. And like I said, you have to live with it at this point and replace the axle shaft. Alright, here's the spool then. Here's that little washer that's part of the drag system below. That goes on to the shaft here. There's a little bit of dirt in there, so one more time we'll take the Q-tip approach here. A little bit of WD-40 to loosen that grease up. Get the Q-tip to clean that out. Alright. Here's your Teflon washer up top here, and boy, that looks like that hasn't been cleaned in a while, so let's take that right off again. There's a lot of dirt. Of course, that would make sense because top drag reels accumulate all kinds of dirt from the water that's coming off the line as it's spooling. You just want to make sure you get that nice and clean. And again, with a 1,000 size reel, you don't need a lot of drag. You're not you're fishing for lighter weight fish at that point, but you need the drag nonetheless. Okay, this is clear. This has a D kind of look to it, one flat side, so find the flat side on your axle shaft there. Get that down. I've gotten questions in the past, what's up and what's down. The hump up on the center, or the legs, if you will, touching the drag washer is the proper orientation for that. Last thing then is the drag button. Just tighten down, make sure that those nice clean drags hold. And they do. So there you go. One Daiwa 1000X. A slight problem on a frozen spool to the axle shaft, but other than that, it's certainly something that's workable, and it's something that can keep on fishing. So I hope you've enjoyed that. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. If you like this, please indicate that. If you want to see more, please subscribe. You can always use subscriptions. If you have a reel that needs to be repaired or serviced and you're not up for doing that yourself, then you can use the contact information on the business card that follows to send me an email, and I'll provide you with the details for the repair service. I hope you have a great day. If you're a first responder, essential personnel, law enforcement, and medical professional, thank you for all that it is that you're doing during the pandemic. And with that, have a great day.